White House leak points to massive Bitcoin strategy. Now, two quick caveats before I get into the article itself. Number one, I will admit I didn't do a story about it, but I will admit I was extraordinarily underwhelmed by the declaration followed by the executive order and all this hoopla regarding the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. They weren't talking about buying more. They were talking about just taking the Bitcoin we already have and basically relabeling it. And I thought, okay, well, that's not really much of a story. And I didn't cover it much for that reason. Caveat number two, it is important that you know that I am still to this day a Bitcoin and, to be clear, an overall cryptocurrency skeptic. I have my concerns, and those concerns continue, even though I have talked about crypto more and more lately. The reason my concerns are a little bit less, quite a bit less, I should say, than they were before is because President Trump won the election. That meant that, hey, there is a chance that this could actually work. Now, I put those chances still relatively low. I would say more and more Americans are putting those chances at higher. I hope I'm wrong. Okay, I hope that my conspiratorial brain is just going off into to some la la land, and that cryptocurrencies are going to be perfectly fine, and they're going to grow, and everybody's going to get wealthy, and instant millionaires or billionaires or whatever. Yeah, I'm cheering for crypto, but personally, I'm a skeptic. Just wanted to put that out there before getting into this article from Forbes. Now, to be clear, this is Forbes, so it's not like, oh, this is going to be totally perfectly honest legacy media stuff. No, Forbes has gone further and further to the left. Seemingly every year they get more leftist, but they do know their stuff when it comes to economics and finance. It says White House leak sparks wild speculation that Trump is about to blow up the Bitcoin price. This is by Billy Bambro over there at Forbes. Bitcoin and crypto prices are struggling to regain momentum after a steep sell-off over the last month, not helped by serious BlackRock chief executive warning. The Bitcoin price has bounced around $80,000 per Bitcoin after falling in the aftermath of President Donald Trump's executive order that called for the creation of a U.S. Bitcoin strategic reserve, but fell short of market expectations and put Bitcoin on the verge of a major price crash. Now, as China quietly primes the Bitcoin price for a huge earthquake, a White House leak has revealed one of Donald Trump's top Bitcoin and crypto officials reportedly said the Trump administration wants to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. Boom, there it is. That's the big leak. And let me make it bigger so you guys can see it just in case. Sorry about that. Let's go back real quick to that China quietly primes the Bitcoin price for a huge earthquake. I'm not going to open that article, but just tell you, earlier in the month of March, China did start making some moves that were positive for the world economy. I don't want to go into the details other than that basically they're desperate, okay? Their economy is as bad as we think our economy was under Joe Biden, and it was definitely very bad. The Chinese economy has been on the verge of collapse for at least 3 or 4 years now. Some would argue that it already has collapsed. They've just done a very good job of hiding that and covering it up and printing money, and there are a lot of concerns about China's overall economy, but as a result, this has put worldwide, more people are getting into both riskier investments on one hand and then more secure investments on the other, which is why it's funny that two of my biggest biggest sponsors, one is cryptocurrency, jdrcrypto.com, one is gold, jdrgold.com. I'm reporting the news here, folks, but it's just funny that depending on which side of the coin you're on, investors, retirees, everyday Americans, more are looking at crypto, more are looking at gold. And gold, of course, did break $3,000 briefly, and I'm certain it probably will again in the near future. But anyway, point is that China is as much, if not more, of a catalyst for the potential for Bitcoin to skyrocket here in the near future than even what this article is talking about regarding President Trump. Just wanted to throw that out there. Let's Where's the rest of the article? Jeez. Bo Hines, executive director of the Presidential Working Group on Digital Assets, told attendees of a closed-door roundtable hosted by the Bitcoin Policy Institute that the White House plans to buy as much Bitcoin as it can. Crypto news outlet Decrypt reported, citing multiple anonymous sources. A White House official confirms Hines' comments to Decrypt, adding any such acquisition would be made in a budget-neutral way that doesn't cost the taxpayer a dime. The private meeting was reportedly attended by U.S. Senators Cynthia Lummis, Bill Hagerty, Bernie Moreno, and as well as strategic founder Michael Saylor, Bitcoin miner, Marathon Digital Chief Executive Fred Thiel, Anchorage Digital CEO Nathan McCauley, and the Chief Executive of Bitcoin Magazine publisher Bitcoin Inc., David Bailey. That's so for those for some of you, if you're into Bitcoin, if you're into crypto, a lot of those names are going to be like, oh wow, that's kind of sort of mind blowing that these are the people that are getting involved in the Bitcoin strategy, because every single one of them, if they are truly the ones, if all of this is accurate, and the White House did at least partially confirm, if all of this is accurate, then yes, it is full steam ahead for cryptocurrencies, full steam ahead for Bitcoin. All of those, I mean, it'd be sort of like saying, we're going to, I don't want to put an analogy because it won't fit. It won't be as grand as what this represents. This tells us that you have members of Congress, senators, congressmen, members of the Trump administration meeting with people who have not only predicted and pushed for, but have essentially put their entire lives behind the pursuit of cryptocurrency as more than just, that's a nice fad. They are actually, their lives revolve around cryptocurrency. These are the true believers. Michael Saylor, if you ever want to get juiced up about Bitcoin, as a skeptic, he's almost gotten me to buy it many times. Okay? So yeah, these are the people that indicate the White House, the Trump administration, is serious about this. Now, if they do start buying, and some are saying they want to buy as many as 1 million Bitcoin over a 5-year period, that's big. Okay? That's really big. Not because of where the prices are today, but because of where the prices are going to be. And here's where we get into the, how the leak and the strategy seems to be brilliant. If this all pans out, and I have no reason to believe that it won't, then that means that the Trump administration made a brilliant move by being underwhelming with their declaration of the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. If they'd come out that day and said, hey, we're going to go buy 1 million Bitcoin over the next 5 years, Bitcoin prices would have gone up probably to 105 at the least, maybe shot up to 120, 130, with a slight possibility, but a possibility that it could have gone to the moon. 200,000, 1 million. Seriously, I mean, real numbers here. But they didn't do that. They didn't make that declaration. And again, it disappointed people like me. But now it makes a lot more sense. Why would they come out and do that before buying it? Why wouldn't they do it start off with this seemingly meaningless, just basically a relabeling of the current Bitcoin they have and saying, oh no, this is part of the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. That's a worthless statement, but that does prime the pump and sets the stage for if they then say, okay, we're now going to go buy a whole bunch of Bitcoin, and then they do it and stick it in the reserve. They're buying it at, what are we at, 80,000 now? I think it's like maybe 84 last I checked. They're buying it far lower, which means they're going to get more bang for the buck, plopping it in there. And then after they start buying it, the word gets out, and all of a sudden, Bitcoin to the moon, as they say. I love it. I love the strategy. It is risky, okay? But the fact they're making it revenue neutral. In other words, it's not going to cost the taxpayers any additional money. What they're doing is they're saying they're going to basically take money that is already pre-existing, and they're saying we're taking this money and we're turning it into this money. They're essentially treating cryptocurrencies as money and saying, look, it's not really, we're not buying anything. We're just moving from this account, which is based on cash or whatever, and we're moving into this account, which is based on cryptocurrencies. So we don't get charged anymore. That money is now moved from basically a safer area to a riskier area, but an area with cryptocurrency that I would say the vast majority of people out there do believe that there is more of an upside than a risk of downside when it comes to cryptocurrency. I'm not a financial advisor. Don't say, I don't want to hear about, oh, Rucker said on the show that we should go buy Bitcoin because it's going to go to the moon. That's not what I'm saying. All these are possible. It's also equally possible that Bitcoin could be $30 next month. Okay, $30 a Bitcoin. I'm not saying that it will. I don't think that's very realistic. But anything is possible. Don't go buy Bitcoin because I'm telling you to. That's all I'm trying to say. But like I said, now that we're seeing what's happening with China, with Europe, with tariffs, and with this, now suddenly I'm much more confident in this U.S. Bitcoin strategic reserve as not being a relabeling move, but rather taking what they apparently are planning, taking our current Bitcoin and multiplying that sixfold while also increasing the price or the value of that Bitcoin. They could take what today would be worth X amount of dollars and in the next 5 years make that 10x or even 100x. So, brilliant strategy. And if the one key thing to remember before you go out and buy a whole bunch of Bitcoin is that if this fails, if they were to go through all of this and Bitcoin fails miserably, that's on the balance sheet. It's not like the loss is much, at least for the U.S. government. I mean, it is a lot. It's a huge amount of money, but they can find ways to cover that up. Whereas, if this does go to the moon, as they say, then the United States will be re-solidified as the undisputed financial champion of the world. You too can go get into the crypto game. You don't have to be a crypto expert. You can let the experts help you by going to jdrcrypto.com. You can do cash. You can roll over your IRA or 401k or whatever, tax-free. There's a lot of options there. Just go to jdrcrypto.com to check that out. I appreciate you watching that clip. If you want to find all the other places where you can follow my work, the best place to do that is at jdrucker.com/find. Be sure to subscribe, be sure to like, and subscribe in other places like Apple Podcast or wherever because it helps.